All right, team, today we are making beef and broccoli. This is a super easy recipe. Three major ingredients: your ground beef, your broccoli, and your rice. I have the rice going right now. Here's the other ingredients you're gonna need. I'm trying to make it as simple as possible, as few ingredients as possible. So check this out. The three liquids you're gonna need, you can use olive oil, but I like to use toasted sesame oil for flavor. Liquid aminos, and then some kind of sriracha, your favorite sriracha. I use this Yellowbird. It is fantastic. As far as seasonings go, this is what we're going to need: sesame seeds, garlic, and salt and pepper. Okay? So those are our ingredients. That's the total list. You've got your beef, your broccoli, your rice, and then those. That's everything. All right, we're going to start with our broccoli here. Right now, I have a pan heated up to about 7 out of 10 heat. And I'm going to get started with my broccoli. Now, if you want to cook these broccoli greens, you can. They're actually full of nutrients. They are a little bit bitter, but they are full of nutrients. So you can eat these if you want to. But I'm going to chop these up into really small florets. So Cam likes her florets really small. So I do what she likes. So really, really tiny is what we're going for. So I'm just going to start by kind of shaving off the tops of our broccoli here, and I'm gonna work at getting these into really tiny florets. If I have to, I gotta chop some in half. I'll chop some in half, into quarters, into thirds, whatever it takes to get them small. When you have a big one like this, just chop it a couple ways to get it nice and tiny, unless you like your broccoli big. Now, it is gonna cook quicker if it's smaller, and the way we're cooking this is in a pan, so we're not gonna be roasting it or frying it or steaming it or anything like that. We're going to be putting this in a pan. It's going to be with some water with some seasonings. So it should cook pretty quickly. It'll come out a little bit al dente, so a little crunchy at the very end. All right, so once you chop them up into their tiny little bits, these are ready for the pan. You don't want to overload your pan with them. They all want to have some contact with the pan. So depending on how big your pan is that you're using, if you're using a really big like wok or something like that, you can probably pack in 2 florets. I'm going to have to go for 2 rounds. So I'll do this round, and then I'll cut this broccoli up, and I'll throw that round in the pan. But the bigger the pan you have, the more broccoli you can do, obviously. Broccoli is in the pan here, and this pan's pretty hot. I haven't seasoned it or anything. Maybe you can hear it sizzling. I'm not sure if you can hear that on your end, but it's sizzling right now a little bit with just the broccoli. There's nothing else in here, but I'm going to add water, and then I'm going to do salt and pepper on the top of it, mix it around a little bit, and then I'm going to cook it covered for about 3 minutes without touching it. All right, here we go. We got a 1/4 cup of water here. Mix it around. You don't want any more than that, but you can see it steaming here. I'm going to add my salt and pepper now. I'm just grinding it fresh right on there. So after this salt and pepper is on here, I'm going to toss this around, and like I said, I'm going to cover it. You might get a little browning on your broccoli, which is totally fine if you're totally fine with it. You can obviously cook your broccoli another way if you want to, but this is the way I do it. I'll shake it up a little bit, make sure it's all covered with those seasonings that we just put on, and then we'll cover it up. So now I'm going to set a timer for 3 minutes, and we'll check back then. Timer just went off, 3 minutes in, and this is what my broccoli looks like. It looks like it's been steamed, and like I said, I might get a little bit of browning on one side, which is totally fine, but this is it for my broccoli. Like I said, it's going to be a little bit al dente, but still cooked, especially the tops will be nice and soft, but those stalks will be a little bit crunchy. We're going to be making our sauce for our beef. So we're going to start with our oil. Like I said, you can use olive oil here. I'm using toasted sesame oil just because the flavor is really good, and I'm just using 2 tablespoons for the whole batch. And this batch, by the way, requires over 2 pounds of meat, 2 pounds-ish of beef. So this isn't going to be that much once it's spread out over all of that beef, but you got that there. And then we're going to add soy sauce. If you like salty, this is a great addition, and you can add as much of this as you want to. I go for at least a 1/4 cup of this stuff. I love salt, so the liquid aminos, they do it for me. And then we have our other wet ingredient, our sriracha. Like I said, any sriracha will do. If you like spicy, add more. Like these things, the Sriracha and the liquid aminos carry little to no calories. So add them up, put in as much as you want. Now we're going for our seasonings. All the seasonings that I showed are going to be in this. So we're going to go for about a tablespoon to 2 tablespoons of garlic. That's garlic to start. Then we got our sesame seeds. I like to generously add sesame seeds because I love sesame seeds. I'm probably going to put some in my rice as well. And then our salt and pepper, another, teaspoon to tablespoon amount. And again, this is as much as you feel like. So for the salt and the pepper, probably a little bit light on the salt, just because all those liquid aminos, and my timer's going off, sorry. Just because of all those liquid aminos, they're going to have a very salty flavor. And this is going to be for our whole entire batch of 2.5 pounds of beef. So I've got ground beef, 93.7 ground beef, that we're just going to be pouring this on after we brown it. I'm going to get started with that in 1 second. All right, so here's my pan. I literally just rinsed this out after I did the broccoli. I didn't wash it or anything, just rinsed the broccoli out. There's even little bits in there that are still kind of lingering around. But now I'm just going to add my beef in here. And to be exact, this is 2.3 pounds of ground beef. I'm just going to throw it in there. This is going to simmer for a while so it gets fully cooked, so we don't need to worry about that. But what I'm going to do first here is I'm going to first kind of chop it up so that it's covering the whole pan. And then I am going to cook it for a little while so it browns. So I'm not going to throw my sauce on just yet. I'm just cooking this so it browns first. And there's tons of flavor in that sauce. If you want more flavor, if you're like, I need more flavor, you can add seasonings to this as it browns as well. So as you're cooking it, you can add seasoning, salt, pepper, garlic, a couple other things if you have them. You can use ground ginger in this recipe. You can use onion powder in this recipe. So many different things you can use here. But we're going to let this simmer for about 3 minutes. I'm going to mix it around again. We're going to simmer it for another 3 minutes, and I'll be back. I've mixed up my ground beef here. This has been simmering for about 5 minutes. You can see that there's still a lot of pink in there, but it is browning a lot. Right now is the time that I'm going to throw in my sauce that I made. So 5 minutes. Oh, and this is at 7 out of 10 heat still, so I didn't even touch the heat. I kept it right where it was that we used for the broccoli. Now we're going to just add it in. Our sauce that we made right here. All those sesame seeds. I love sesame seeds. We're just pouring it right on top. So this is going to be super flavorful depending on how much you put in there. One other thing that you can add to this, and I'm just mixing it around here, but one other thing you can add to this is honey. And I just kept it out because I didn't want too many ingredients. I didn't want to go over on your carbs. But if you have plenty of carbs, that's one thing you can add. It's just really hard to track, so it's not going to be as accurate. And it's the same thing with the oil that we use, that sesame oil. It's going to be very hard to track that at the end, but everything else is going to be super easy. I'm going to tell you guys how to track it at the end so you can be the most accurate. But right now I'm just mixing that sauce in, so it's kind of all over the pan. It's touching all of the beef. And we're going to cover this up, and we are going to let this simmer for about 12 minutes. So I'm just going to set a 12-minute timer on that same, sorry, there's my other timer for my rice. We're just going to set a timer for 12 minutes. Now that this is all mixed up, I'm going to cover it. Remember, I didn't wash anything, so there's no need to wash any of this stuff during. You can wash all this stuff after. It's going to start bubbling up in there. There's going to be a little bit of liquid, a decent amount of liquid by the time 12 minutes is up. But I'm setting that timer right now, and we'll peek at it in 12 minutes before I mix it again. I'm so sorry, but I forgot to mention this. We are 3 minutes in, and I'm at still at 7 out of 10 heat. And you can see how vigorously this is kind of bubbling. I'm going to turn that down, and there's some steam coming out too. I'm going to turn this down to about 3.5, 4 out of 10 now, so it simmers a little bit lighter, and it's not boiling like this. You don't want to boil your meat too much, so sorry about that, but that's just something we're going to do. If you're kind of cooking while you're watching this, turn it down now. If you are not cooking this yet, definitely turn it down like right when you put your sauce in. Turn it down to that 3 out of 4 and then set your timer for 12 minutes. All right, guys, we are 12 minutes in. This is what we're looking at. So obviously a little lighter bubble, more of a simmer than a boil. So I'm going to remove the top here. You can see there's a bunch of liquid there. But when I mix it around, you can incorporate a lot of that liquid into your beef, especially if you didn't break it all up in the beginning. So just start breaking up your beef, and it's going to absorb a lot of that liquid as we move the top off. And after this, we are ready to plate. So I'm just going to mix this around a little bit, but it's done. One super cool thing I wanted to mention before I get into plating is the way you meal prep could be to completely make your meals into individual meals, or you can bulk meal prep, which is what I have right now. So right now we just made the rice, we made the broccoli, and we made the beef, and they're all separate. I could stash these things if I'm someone who doesn't always have the exact amount of carbs, proteins, and fats at the end of the night. Say I have 100 grams of carbs one night, 55 grams of carbs the next night. I can still have this meal if I keep everything separate, and then I can build it right on the spot. So I could put this into separate containers, put it in my refrigerator, and then build the meals as I need. Or if I'm someone who always plans, I always have about 75 grams of carbs. I always have, 40 grams of protein. I always have about 15 to 16 grams of fat per meal. If I always have that and I'm very consistent, then it's awesome to make them into individual meals that are right around those numbers. That way you can just put it in the microwave, boom, heat it up. But it is bulk meal prepping, like bulk prepping your rice, bulk prepping your meat, bulk prepping your vegetable. Maybe you have a fat like avocados or something like that, or you want to make it into guacamole, something for your fats. Bulk prepping those things and then putting them together as needed is another way to do it. As we're plating this, we are also going to tap into a cool way to use your scale and make sure that you're using it right. And maybe this will be a hack for you or maybe not. But before I even turn it on, so you can see it's blank on the screen, I'm going to put my bowl on there. So this is what I'm going to use to make my meals. I'm going to put my bowl on there, and then I'm going to build right in the bowl. So I'm just going to hit the power/tear button now, and that comes right to 0. So from here, I know, because I'm a big guy, I need about 120 to 150 grams of rice to get the carbs that I want. So now I can just add my rice to it. Coming in with the rice here. I chose the wrong spoon, but it's okay. So there we have 147. We'll just make it around 150 by adding little bit. 152 is fine, okay? 152 is fine. All right, so from here, I'm going to add my broccoli. And if I know that I need, or I want, broccoli is more of a want thing because it's very low in calories. If I know that I want about 50 to 100 grams of broccoli, because broccoli is going to give me some fiber, so the more broccoli I can put in it, the better. I'm just going to add about 100 grams of broccoli, again, because I'm a pretty big guy. Little by little here, making my way to 100. And you'll see that it's super easy because it started at 0, so I just put 100 in there. We're going to cut it off at 88 because I want to have some for the other bowls. All right, so I can track this live in my app. Now we're going for our ground beef. And for me, here, watch this. Boom, back to 0. For me, because I'm a bigger guy, I usually need about 180 grams of ground beef. And that's including the fats. Just because I know from tracking for years and years that that's the amount that I need. Now for this particular dish, I'm using this spoon that has some holes in it, so a grated spoon, just to leave some of the liquid in the actual pan. But right there, that was a 100-gram scoop. Boom, we're up to 150-ish. Another small one here. Another small one here. Boom. And there I'm up to 180. So one thing I like to do when I'm all finished, I told you guys I love sesame seeds. I like to top this thing in sesame seeds. And then some more of that sriracha, because who doesn't love some extra sriracha? So boom, we'll put some extra sriracha on there. Pow. This is finished, and it's one of my favorite meal preps. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you got something out of this video. So I've been chowing into this thing, and I just realized that I forgot to tell you guys how to track your oil in it. And I know I said I would do that. So here we are, how to track your oil. So the amount of beef I used was 2.3 pounds. Now I'm gonna take that amount of beef and I'm gonna turn it into grams, which is about 1,050 grams. And that's my total amount of meat. Now I used 2 tablespoons of oil in the entire recipe. So I'm gonna take my beef and take the average number of grams I typically use for a meal. So let's make it easy. Say it's 100 grams, just to make it easy. And so I've got 100 grams of beef per meal. Now I'm going to have a total amount of 1,000 grams of beef. And per meal, that would be, because I use 2 tablespoons, 2 divided by 10, because I can fit 10 meals with the amount of beef that I have. So 2 over 10, or 1/5 of a tablespoon per meal of that oil. If that doesn't make sense, please reach out and I'll get you good on your oil tracking.